I made a deal with the wrong devil. Dark pact, blood oath, deal with the devil. There are numerous names for it. It's meant as a metaphor for a person compromising their moral principles or integrity for salacious gain, typically financial. Money is the root of all evil, right? That's probably true in many cases of uncomfortable bargains, but there are countless other justifications for them. Extended youth and vigor, gaining the romantic favors of a desired mate, or making partner with the firm are other examples. Everyone has their own self-absorbed reasons for signing on the dotted line in these unsavory endeavors. Regardless of the motivation or goal, there's a price to pay in the end. There always is, and it can be steep. This is my story. I was an average man, leading a mediocre existence, who one day dared to dream of something more. The fact was, I was so ordinary that I didn't even possess the necessary imagination to define what that meant to me. I simply knew there had to be something else beyond what I already had. Money, fancy cars, better looks, or a beautiful woman who adored me. Those are the usually suspect upgrades mundane people like me frequently wish for. Any of that sounded appetizing. More of it had to be a feast of happiness. The all-encompassing everything I aspired to imagine had to offer a full cornucopia of blissful contentment. That was the flawed thought process which evolved from a discrete level of personal ambition to outright greed. They always say to go big or go home. Especially if you are making a deal with the devil, you might as well negotiate the very best contract you can. As is often the case, I didn't know who I was dealing with. When a man of limited means and options is offered opportunities far outside the reasonable expectations of what he might hope for, there's a brief period of self-assessment. He considers his relative worth. He wants to believe the best about himself. I certainly did. A healthy ego and pride sees to that, but usually higher logic and humility will do its best to keep you grounded in the psychological tug-of-war. Flattery clouds things. It always does. Blatant flattery from an attractive lady will muddle the water to a greater degree. When this incredibly rare exchange occurs from a stunning goddess who you can't believe is real, your brain turns to pure mush. You know she's completely out of your league, but you hope she is feeling generous with her attentions, or sees something within you which is more than meets the eye. Never in my wildest fantasies had I wanted to believe the fairer sex weren't as superficial as men like me when it came to matters like that. That's the only way our coincidental exchange that fateful day made any sense at all. While we were standing face to face in the corporate office lobby discussing an accounting matter, another co-worker literally walked into a nearby support beam and face-planted. That's how magnetically beautiful she is. The interesting thing was, she didn't even bat an eye when Dave the horn dog went down. At the time, I chalked it up to false modesty on her part, or out-of-this-world self-confidence. It clearly wasn't the first time something comical like that had happened in her presence. I felt bad, but old Dave was on his own this time. No one offered to help him get off the floor, including myself. I couldn't focus on anything else but her long, flowing locks, the sparkling color of eternal flame. I listened to her every word with the hyper-focus of a mystic deeply in trance, and maintained full eye contact the entire time. I couldn't begin to tell you, however, what was discussed by either of us. For all I knew, complete gibberish oozed from my drooling maw. Thankfully, her smile was reassuring. It seemed to convey I had somehow managed to offer appropriate responses and insightful ideas about the matter she contacted me regarding. Honestly, no one was more surprised than myself that it wasn't me who smacked into the wall. Her twinkling eyes peered through my soul and sent a visceral shiver down my spine. Her Cupid's bow lips and feminine tongue were the essence of carnal male fantasy. The melodic voice addressing me was the most perfect balance of tantalizing and yet commanding I'd ever witnessed. It was as if I was someone she utterly adored. I was putty in her hands, and when she asked if we could meet again for lunch to discuss other issues on her mysterious mind, all I could do was nod slowly. I hoped I wasn't sporting a stupid, absent grin. As we parted, she reached over and touched my arm as a traditional gesture of affection. I might have been thrilled ordinarily, But instead of feeling warm or flirtatious, her touch actually felt like an acidic chemical burn. I was instantly triggered by overwhelming visions of suffering and darkness. The experience drained the very essence of life from me, and it's a wonder I didn't lose my bladder. Unfortunately, she let go of me right before I came to my senses. I have to wonder what it would have taken to snap me out of her enchanting spell. At the restaurant, she sat beside me, girlfriend style. I couldn't believe my incredible luck. I took it as a sign she was interested in me, beyond being co-workers at the accounting firm. When she placed her slender hand on mine, there was no sudden jolt of diabolic evil this time. She was wisely wearing gloves, but I didn't make the connection. Who could have? Yes, I remembered then that she was way out of my league, but I was already under her charms. Our flummoxed server spilled our drinks all over the table when he made eye contact with her in what was to become a reoccurring pattern around Daphne. She paid the event no notice, as he apologized profusely. No one with eyes couldn't blame the poor sap. If it was even possible, she was more stunning than she had been earlier in the office. I was on cloud 9 of Sapsville. That's when the reality distortion field of male stupidity fully kicked in. Being in the company of such an incredible woman makes a mediocre fool believe he deserves her attention. My confidence grew out of proportion with the facts. All I knew was that I was on an opportunistic wave, and I was determined to ride it until I came crashing down. A man of my obvious limitations doesn't look too much at a gift horse. I wish I had. Daphne teased both a demure interest in me and an alternatively masterfully push as my mind reeled from the unbelievable stimuli. I summoned the courage to put my arm around her waist, but it was as if an electric current flowed within her svelte body. I could almost feel high voltage coursing through her form-fitting skirt. The hair on my arm initially stood on end, but then seemed to recoil and singe as I tried to get any closer to her. That should have been a wake-up call that something was definitely wrong with my enchanting date from the 8th floor. But I was too busy soaking up the romantic envy of every man in the room and the jealous scorn of every woman scowling at us. It was beyond intoxicating and messed with my ability to think straight, as if I needed anything else working against my own good sense and self-interest. I paid the bill and rose to guide her out of the booth. She winked seductively and suggested we immediately go back to her place to discuss things which I wanted. Like a moron, I started to remind her that we still had the rest of the workday to complete, but caught myself mid-sentence before I ruined what I assumed was the greatest opportunity of my pathetic life. What about Mr. Lauderman? He'll have our heads for skipping. I'll call and tell him we aren't coming back to the office this afternoon. Daphne explained matter-of-factly. It was as if she was the chairman of the board herself. He does exactly what I tell him to do. I looked at her in bemused disbelief. I thought she was merely another hopeful associate like me, but her expression was dead serious. She obviously had clout with management, so I accepted what she said at face value. For all I knew, she was the old man's daughter. Then, like a butcher leading a bull to the slaughter, I accepted her gloved hand and followed her back to her lavishly decorated luxury apartment. Charles, do you want to make partner at the firm, or make me? I grinned like a damned fool at her cheeky innuendo, and then blurted out like an entitled blowhard. I was so puffed up with undeserved confidence that I went straight for the gold. I want it all, and I want it now. To my surprise, she said that both of my lofty desires could be arranged. That is, as long as I signed a standard, boilerplate contract she happened to have prepared with her. My momentarily inflated self-worth and amazing momentum thus far led me to disregard the 100 red flags waving in the wind already. What contract? I can become a full partner at the firm with all the bonus pay, and I can have you as my lover too? Where the hell do I sign? I half laughed and half snorted at the absurdity and waited for Daphne to join in. She didn't. It was sobering. Hell indeed. When you dare to dream, I listen, Charles. I'm always listening. Today, I'm in a generous mood. Most people only get one thing which they really want in these negotiations. You can have me and the money. I just need your finger for the blood ink. It's mandatory in these official matters. As soon as you sign, I'll remove these clothes and you can do anything your dirty little mind desires for the next 12 years. My mind raced to understand. I heard her words, but they were a collection of assembled madness presented as an ordinary conversation. I thought it was some surreal joke at first, but the longer she waited for my finger to be sliced with the ceremonial blade, the less it appeared to be anything sane. "What are you?" I demanded fearfully. "You know who and what I am, Charles. I'm not a goddess, that's for certain. I make deals, I always have. Give me your fingertips so we can start the exciting process of your ascension to power, lust, and financial prominence." The blade was very sharp, so I didn't feel the cut, but it became infected later on. Of all the pacts or oaths I could have made, I never expected to make a deal with the actual devil. He comes in many forms. Beware of the highly agreeable version of him, which looks just like Daphne from accounting, and be really careful of what you wish for when you are alone at night. 12 years isn't as much time as you might think. I've seen hell when Daphne touched me with her bare hand. It definitely ain't pretty, especially when she takes off her skin.
Thank you for watching our video. Be sure to like this video, check out our other videos, and subscribe with the bell notification on to see our other haunting tales.